just make sure it's going to do that. Here's my microphone. 1 second. Good. Okay, that's done. Now, where am I? Here we are. Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. So I was a couple of minutes late. I swear I pressed the wrong button and it all disappeared. Start again. Oh dear. I'll get there one day. All right. Okay, everybody. For some reason I can't see anybody's faces. Never mind, I suppose it'll work. Wait a minute. Somebody else want to come in? No, I think we're all okay. A minute. Ah, right. Okay, right. Fantastic. All right. So I think we're all okay now. All right. Well, an interesting piece this week. Bechukotai obviously is not our favorite Sidra, because it's got, all the reproof in it. There's 2 Sidras which have got this. There's a Bechukotai and Kitisa. And these are obviously very difficult to read, especially post-Holocaust, and also what's going on right now. Very, very, very hard to read. And I was very interested to see what the Zohar had to say. And the Zohar offers a very different take on it all. So we're going to learn a bit of Zohar today, Bezrat Hashem. Okay, and we're going to start off with our prayer. Okay. And I want to dedicate the learning, the safety and well-being, and the coming home, the geula of the hostages, and that God should open our eyes and help us let them be free, and also the safety and well-being of the soldiers, and refuah shalema to all the soldiers who need a big refuah right now. Okay. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב הרחמן והסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, וקידה בשטח הוויה שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ועל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבינך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו לראותך ולבדך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך כריח ניחוח, ותציל עלינו, אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבל נכשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לראות צאני מפיו, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי, אמן כן יהי רצון. Okay, so let's just start off with I had the things open And by accident, like I said, I clicked on the wrong button, and all the sauces I had carefully prepared disappeared. Okay, but never mind. All will be well. Oh, gosh, sorry. So let's go to parasha. It'll be in. Oh, here we go. Got it. Um, Here. Oh, right. Am I showing that? Can you see that? I'm not sure I can. 1 second. Do new share. That's better. Right. Okay, here we go. So, im Bechukotai telechu, ve'et mitzvotai tishmeru, vasitem otam. If you walk in my statutes and you keep my commandments and you do them, all right? ונתתי גשמכם בעיתם, ונתנה הארץ יבולה, ועץ השדה ייתן פריו. I will give rain in its season, and the land will yield its produce, and the tree of the field will yield its fruit. והשיג לכם דיש את הבציר, ובציר ישיג את זרע. And your threshing will reach to the vintage, and the harvest will reach the sowing time. ואכלתם לחמכם לשובע, and will eat your bread in plenty. וישבתם לבטח בארצכם, and you shall dwell in safety in your land. Now, these beautiful promises, okay, are obviously things that we would love, absolutely. And they relate also to the physical world, but not only to the physical world. Primarily, the promises relate to the light of God, because the ultimate goodness that God wants to give us is the connection with Him, which comes through walking in His ways and keeping His commandments. The commandments, it's very important to understand that commandments are not a sort of like a sort of deity commanding us to obey Him. I think it's very important to understand what this whole idea is of reward and punishment, because most people have got it a bit wrong, quite frankly, and I'm not surprised, because the language is very much this sort of idea of reward and punishment. But the basic idea to understand is what these statutes are, what the commandments are, and what it means by doing them. All right? And the statutes and the commandments, the statutes is kind of like the rules by which things work. All right? Now, it's very clear to all of us that there are physical principles involved in living on this planet. Like Isaac Newton sat under a tree and an apple fell on his head, and he discovered the law of gravity. Okay? Now, physical rules apply, and you don't have to teach a toddler the rules of gravity, because they find them out very quickly for themselves. All right? You just they throw their dolly down and their dolly falls down, okay? And they might actually, or they stumble and they fall down, all right? So you don't actually have to teach physical rules, okay? They're obvious and everybody can understand them very easily. If you put a cold ice cube into a hot cup of tea, it melts. You don't have to go to school for that, all right? But spiritual rules are different. They are not easy for us to see, because being souls within the physical world, within the physical body, it's not easy for us to understand the spiritual principles which apply. And therefore, it's very helpful to learn Kabbalah, because when we learn the Kabbalah, we learn the spiritual principles, the great sage who, if you like, pulled the spiritual principles out of the Zohar in the same way that the Tana, I think it was Rav, oh, I've forgotten his name. It was Rav, the Reef, I think it was, the Reef, pulled the halacha out of the discussions of the Gemara, okay, and which forms the basis of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so the Holy Ari was able to pull the um, spiritual principles which underlie the mitzvot and underlie the chukim, if you like, out of the Zohar, and therefore give us the understanding of what the mitzvot really are, and actually what this whole piece is about. Because basically, what is reward and what is punishment? We want to really find out. You see, if you have spiritual principles, okay, and we don't know what they are, we're very likely to fall down, okay? Like if we didn't know the laws of gravity, we'd be falling down the whole time, all right? So the spiritual principles are given to us through the mitzvot, through the chukim and the mitzvot. These are ways of behavior which will ensure that we keep to the spiritual principles which keep us from harm, which help us bring us in the right way and help us live productive lives which bring the most benefit to ourselves and to everybody else around us. Okay? So the mitzvot, the negative mitzvot stop us straying into the area of the will to receive for ourselves alone. All the negative mitzvot, all of them, are areas which we cannot correct, which we cannot bring into holiness. Their desires to receive, which are so great, which we cannot correct them. They're called the heart of stone. All right, we are not able to correct the area of reality. So all the don't do's, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay, all these are areas which we have no way whatsoever of bringing them into holiness. Okay, that's one thing. And the other mitzvot, the positive mitzvot, are the mitzvot which bring us into affinity of form with the Creator in giving love and opening our hearts to Him, opening our abilities to bring all of our abilities in line with the Creator. And then what follows is a natural consequence. Okay, first on the good side, and I will give rain in its season, and the land will produce its produce. The land, meaning the consciousness with which we are living, will give forth its produce, its required result. Eitz hasadeh, the sadeh also is the field of consciousness in line with the light of God, and that will give its fruit. All right. And it'll be beyond what we can imagine, all right? That the threshing will reach into the vintage and the vintage will reach to the seed. I mean, it's beyond our capability to imagine the goodness that comes about through the true keeping of the mitzvot, all right? V'natati shalom ba'aretz u'shchaftem ve'ein macharid. I will bring peace, wholeness into the land, into the consciousness which is called Eretz Israel, the land which is straight for God. U'shachaftim ve'ein macharid, and you shall lie down, there's none to make you afraid. Vishpati chaya ra'a min ha'aretz, I will cease the evil animals, that is the will to receive oneself alone. That's what it is. That's the evil animal. It's not out there, it's inside us. From that consciousness, from the land, V'cherev lo tavo ba'artzachem, and sword shall not go through your land. Okay? And it goes on to, enumerate this beautiful, beautiful goodness. All right? V'im lo tishma'u li, but if you don't listen to me, v'lo tasud kol mitzvot ha'eleh, and you don't keep all these rules, v'im bechukotai timasu, and you reject my statutes, v'im et mishpatai tig'al nafshachem, and if your soul abhors my ordinances, levilti asot et kol mitzvotai, and to do all that I told you not to do, lafachem et briti, so you break my covenant, then I'm not going to enumerate them now, all right? But then the opposite happens, all right? But if you can understand what we just said, that's a natural consequence, okay? It's not a punishment in the sense that God is, oh, he's annoyed with us or something. God doesn't need our good deeds. He's full, he's complete, just the way, he's whole. There's nothing that we can do to add to his divinity in any way whatsoever. There's nothing we can do to increase his goodness. All right? So we're not doing our good deeds because God needs them in that sense. All right? No, only because that way we bring about that his creation is happy. And that's what he wants. He wants to be able to do good to his creation. So if you can say his disappointment in those sort of terms, then he's only sorry because we are not going in the right direction to enable him to give all the goodness that he wants to give us. But that's it. All right? It's our choice. So it's what is here listed is actually consequences. All right? These are consequences. They're natural in the same way that the apple, when it's ripe, will fall off the tree. It's exactly the same principle. It's not going to fly into the air. All right? Because there are spiritual rules which function exactly the same way as physical rules. Okay? God created his world in an orderly way. Right, what we call teva, nature, all right? And it works on the spiritual as well as on the physical as well. Now, as I said earlier, the problem with the spiritual principles is we do not know them naturally. And the reason why we don't know them naturally is because we are souls, spiritual beings, but we are placed in a garment which is physical. All right. And you all know the parable that before we're born, we learn Torah, and the angel comes and taps us on our lip before we're born, and we forget all that we have learnt. And so we come into the world with the illusion that we are physical beings, all right, without knowing the reality of the soul. And this is what the way God wants us to have it. Now, you can ask why. You can certainly, it's a very good question. Why did he do it that way? Why didn't he just make his goodness obvious? Why doesn't he show us the spiritual principles and then it'd be easy for us to keep the Torah? And Rabbi Ashak asks this question in his introduction to the study of the 10 Sefirot. He says, why didn't God create the world so that when I keep kosher, it's obviously that I'm gaining so much, I'm getting all the goodness in the world, okay? And if, God forbid, somebody was to eat treif, he would choke on the spot and die, all right? Nobody would consider eating treif, not for a second. All right. And if people were aware of the tremendous goodness available to them through through the mitzvot, everybody would be chasing after mitzvot. All right. But God wants us to come to him through giving. all right, through faith. And faith means doing it with a na'aseh v'nishma. First we do it, only subsequently afterwards we'll be able to understand. But in our generation, this particular generation that we're in, just being told what to do is in general not enough. This is why the holy rabbis, Rav Kook and Rav Ashlag, opened the Zohar and the Kabbalah for our generation. There's lots of reasons for this, but in general, the physical development of our generation is, as you can see, going, in the physical world is going up exponentially. All right. And and that ties along with the spiritual development also. So the souls are ready for this material, and that's why just being told what the mitzvot are is not for most people nowadays, or for many people, I'd say many people nowadays, is not sufficient. And that's why the Kabbalah opened, and so we can learn what these spiritual principles are. And anybody who's not been to my upcoming webinar, I've got one on Monday, which I'm talking about the principle of affinity of form. All right, just that one principle. All right, I'll be talking about it. It's a free webinar. I'll put the link in the chat, in the WhatsApp. You're invited, okay? And you can come and learn just the one principle of affinity of form. It's one spiritual principle, which quite honestly, that made a huge difference in my life, an amazing difference in my life, just understanding one of the principles which underlines the mitzvot. Now, so what we have here in this sidra, we have not threatening, God threatening us. He's simply telling us consequences so we don't fall flat on our faces. I mean, it's really as simple as that. Okay, there's a door banging. I'm just going to, 1 second, just go and close it because it's driving me mad. A moment. Okay, wonderful. Now, let's go on to the Zohar. All right. So I'm going to stop share there. And I need to go to the Zohar. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think I'm sharing that. 1 second. Share screen. That's right. Yeah, I'm going to have to go back to the Tanakh in a second, but we'll start off with the Zohar first. All right. Now, having said all that, okay, the Zohar opens this week's Sidra by absolutely declaring that also the reproof, the tochacha, is part of God's love. And let me get that a bit more readable. Okay. Parashat Bechukotai. Im Bechukotai tilechu v'gomer, v'bechia patach. Ami zachana ma ya'atz Balak melech Moav, u'ma ana oto Bilam ben Ba'or v'gomer. Ami zachana zaka'al chukad de'amada, damarehon ochachlon hachi. Ami zachana אף על גב דעתון שטן מאורחי, עמי אתון, דלא בעינה למעבד לכו כעובדייכו. אם בחוקותי תלכו וגומר, רבי חייא פתח. עמי זכרנה מי עץ בלק מלך מואב. If you go walk in my statutes, Rabbi Chia opened his discourse and he said, my people, remember now what Balak, the king of Moab, counseled And what Bilam, the son of Be'ar, answered him. This is a quote from Micha, and we're going to go and look at it in a moment. All right. Ami Zahana, my people, remember, please. Happy is the portion of this people whose Lord reproves them like this. My people, remember, please, even though you've turned away from the pathway, you are still my people, and I do not want to recompense you according to your deeds. All right. So let's just go into Micha a second. One second. I need to find it first. Micha. All right, and it's chapter 6. There you go. Shimunat Asher Hashem Omer. Listen now to what the Lord is saying. Kum u'riv harim. Contend before the mountains. V'tishmana gvaot kolecha. And let the hills hear your voice. Shimu harim et riv Hashem. Hear, O mountains, the quarrel of God. Va'itanim oste aretz. And you enjoying rocks of the earth. Ki riv Lashem imamo. Because God has a controversy with his people. V'im Yisrael yitvakach. And he will plead with Israel. Ami me'asiti lacha. My people, what did I do to you? Mehe leiticha. How have I wearied you? Anebi, answer me. Ke'eliticha me'eretz Mitzrayim u'mebeit avadim pediticha. Because I brought you out of the land of Egypt, and out of the house of bondage I have redeemed you. Ve'shlach lefanecha et Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. And I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Ami, my people, Zachana Mayatz Balak Melech Moav. Remember what Balak, king of Moab, devised. Ume'anau to Bilam ben Ba'or. And what Bilam, the son of Ba'or, answered him. Mina Shittim, from Shittim, Ada Gilgal, Laman Dat Tzidkot Hashem. So you may know the righteous acts of God. Okay, what's the call with God? I took you out of the land of Egypt. I took you out of your will to receive for yourself alone. I took you out from serving it. I redeemed it from you. And I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, who are the prophets who've given us the Torah. Okay? What's wrong with that? Okay? But, of course, it opposes our will to receive for ourselves alone, so we tend to sin. Bama akadem Hashem, how shall I come before the Lord? Ikaf lo rei marom, bow myself, I shall bow down before the gods on high. Akademnu be'olot ba'galim b'nei shana, how shall I come before him with burnt offerings with calves of a year old? Hashem ba'alfei elim. Does God want thousands of rams? Bivavot nachalei shemen, with tens of thousands of rivers of oil? Aten b'chori pishi pri bitni chatat nafshi? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Higid lecha adam ma tov. It's been told to you, O man, what is good. Uma Hashem doresh mimcha, and what God wants of you. Ki masot mishpat v'avat chesed v'atznei lechet im Elohecha. But to do justice and love loving kindness and walk modestly with your God. That's it. Okay? So the Zohar compares this reproof with the reproof in Bechukotai and says they're actually equivalent. Well, this is what's called the soft reproof, and the Bechukotai one is the hard reproof. But it means the same thing, okay? Just spoken in softer language. All right, so if we go back a moment to the Zohar, all right, Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, Rabbi Yitzchak, oh, wait a minute, am I doing this right? Stop share. I don't know if I'm doing that right. That's the one. There, okay. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Ashrei chelko shel am, she'adonam amar lehem. Happy is the portion of the people whose master says to them, Ami, ma asiti lacha? My people, what did I do to you? Ma he'eleiticha? And what did I weary you? Anebi, answer me. Ma ya'atz Balak melech Moab? How did the king of Moab, Balak, counsel? And b'kama dvim ma'asim chashav l'chalot etchem min ha'olam. Look how many ways and look how many deeds he thought to extinguish you from the world. V'kama kshafim oreh lenegdacham. How much witchcraft he awoke against you. But God looked after us. Okay? On the contrary, God changed the words, the plot of Balak and Bilam. He changed it into blessings. I find this is very sort of achshavi right now. When I read this during the week, I was like, oh my God, this is now. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Amar lon kudsha b'chol Yisrael, zechor na, vayta anan tzavchin b'kol yoma v'gainan v'bachinan, zechor Hashem ma haya lanu, zechor Hashem livnei Edom, v'lo ba'i lishkacha lana. הוא אמר לן בבאו זכרונה אינה אלא לשון בעותה, וענן לא ישכחנה בי, כגב נדע אנו צפחין, זכור השם מה היה לנו, זכור השם לבני אדום, זכור עידתך קנית קדם, זכרני השם ברצון עמך, ולא באי להשכחה עלן. Rabbi Yossi said, אמר להם הקדוש ברוך הוא, the Holy Blessed One said to Israel, Zacha na. Remember, please. Okay? The word na is a word of please, of request. God asks us, please. Okay? Oi, she'anu tzoakim b'kol yom, v'anu goim u'bochim. Whoa, that we cry out every day, and we yell and we cry, Zohar Hashem. We're not asking please, we just say, telling God, remember God, Ma'elanu, what's happened to us. Zohar Hashem livnei Edom. Remember God, what the sons of Edom have done. And he doesn't seem to sort of take any notice of us. Vehu mishum, why was that? Shu amalanu b'bakasha, because he asked us quietly, asked us with love, he asked us with please. Zachar na, remember please. God asks us gently. Ke'ein na el lashon bakasha. The word please, na, is a language of request. Ve'nanu mashgichim alav. And we don't take any notice of that. Okay, anu tzoakim ke'ein zeh. So we're crying out like this. Remember what's happened to us. Remember to the sons of Edom. Okay? And he's not taking notice. And it's because that you can feel the yearning in the word na, please. It's like God's yearning for us. He's looking for us. He wants us. Okay? That na. That very gentle word, okay? And we also need to realize that he wants us, he's looking for us. He wants us to come back to him, all right? That little, and so we need to remember that love also in the situation that we're in now, okay? And I know it's very, very difficult. I did not watch the film of the girls who were taken into hostage, but I heard enough about it and I was crying. Just that was enough to make me cry. And I'm saying to God, God, we see these beautiful young men and we say, God, you know what? I don't understand anything. I don't understand what you want, but maybe this little word na, this little word please, if we can bring more please into our discourse with God and also our discourse with each other. All right? One thinks like this, one thinks like that. It's okay. but we need to find that gentler tone, that please. Okay, I think that Zohar na, that word please, that na, is many ways the key. Daled. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, ודאי קודש ברוך הוא ישכח על תדיר, ותדחילון, אילאו הוא ישכח בו בישראל ודחילון, לא יקומון חד יומא בגלותה, כמו שכתוב, ואף גם זאת בהיותם בארץ אויביהם, לא מאסתם לכלותם. הקודש ברוך הוא לא אביד לנו כעובדנה. I've lost the place. Here it is. Rabbi Yehuda said, Vadai, the Holy Blessed One, looks after us always and remembers us. And if he did not be, if he was not remembering us or looking after Israel, we would not be able to survive one day in exile. And this is what is written. Even so, when you are in the land of the enemies, that is, not just physically, but also mentally, emotionally, we're connected with our will to receive for ourselves alone. We've forgotten about God. Even when we're there, I will not abandon you. I will not despise you. I will not finish you off or anything like that. God is still with us because he does not give back to us according to our deeds. Now the Zohar really goes deeply into what was Balak and what was Bilam, okay? So we'll just go where the Zohar's taking us, all right? Anybody got any questions before we do that?
I did, but you already brought it up and about current situation, so I don't have any more questions.
I know. That's the question, isn't it? Because we're living this now.
Right.
Yes, we are.
But I think what the Zohar brings us, that soft tone, is, I think, crucial. I have chavrutas with people from all parts of the spectrum. I have chavrutas also with people who go on these demonstrations.
Oh my gosh.
Every Saturday night.
Oh
and
my
I have chavrutas with them. I do. Because my understanding is that they care. It's coming from a place of caring. I personally, it's not my way, okay? But the issue of keeping that that connection, the love between us, and there is genuine love between us, even though I don't agree with one, I don't agree at all, but there is genuine love. And it's possible to find that soft way of accepting and of loving, even with people that you definitely disagree with. Because politics is only one aspect of life. The reality is we are all together. We are all part of one soul. So to find that to find that softness, to find the connection, I feel is outweighs everything else.
Would you say that people who went to Meron and did what they did, whatever, whoever, they also cared?
I think that people, I think that everybody is different and we see things through different lenses. It's very interesting that the parasha on Naso, there's three areas in the Torah which I really find fascinating from this aspect. First of all is the blessings of Yaakov to the sons. Second of all is Moses' blessing to the tribes. And the third one is the Parshat Naso. And from these three things, what do we find? We find that every single tribe in Israel has a totally different way of serving God. They see things totally differently, like totally differently. Okay? I mean, really differently. In the Parshat Naso, it goes through the 12 tribes, the Nasi of all 12 tribes, okay? And they all ended up giving exactly the same thing. So why doesn't the Torah just say, okay, and after the people gave their contributions, the Nasiim brought their contributions, and it was one salver this and one spoon of that and one whatever, okay? And that's what it was. All right? And they all brought the same thing, which is actually what happened in practice. But in fact, it tells you the same thing 12 times. Okay? And the answer is the reason why, because they all came from totally different perspectives. Totally different. And you look at the blessings, they are like from chalk to cheese. Like totally different. I mean, like, wow. And to realize that means that in Am Yisrael, we have 12 different perspectives, not just right and left. We have 12 different perspectives on the way to do things, the way to run things, the way to serve God. 12 different perspectives. Okay? I have no doubt that the policemen who were guarding Omeron were serving God in their way. And I have no doubt that the people who went to Meron were serving God in their way. And what they do have to learn is how to talk to each other and to have understanding between each other instead of fisticuffs, which in my view is very childish. It's like the kindergarten. All right. And the more we can listen to each other, but you have to appreciate that people see things differently. They really do. We do. This is the hardest thing of Am Yisrael. It's very different, living here than living. I grew up in England, okay, and I went back to England a couple of times to visit my father-in-law when he was still alive, Zichrono Livracha. And when I got to England, I thought everybody was asleep there. It felt like everybody was asleep. And the reason was everybody felt that it felt like the same. Suddenly all the balagan of Israel wasn't there. It felt like everybody had gone to sleep. And that's the reality because, they're not so different from each other. Here, everybody's different. And it makes it harder, very much harder. And
I'm sorry to say again, would you see serving God differently and creating a violent situation because they see it that way is okay?
No, it's not okay.
Well,
it
those
is not
12
okay,
tribes.
But it comes from seeing things differently. But it's
Then,
absolutely not okay to create violent situations. Absolutely not. But it's because everybody is so stuck in seeing their way that they're not being able to see that there are other ways. But we have to learn to see that there are other ways. No, it's not okay. I don't agree at all with violence, and I don't agree at all with the violent demonstrations. I do not agree with any of that at all, at all, at all. But what I do agree with is to understand that we have different views, and they are not necessarily wrong, but they're coming from totally different ways, which ultimately comes from the fact that we have 12 different tribes and all the tribes were different. That's where it comes from. To understand that where it comes from is important because then we have more compassion and we're able to put in that word, please. No, I don't agree with violence at all.
This is exactly, I'm sorry, and I'm going to stop after, but this is exactly what people say. We see things different. We are 12 tribes. We see it different. That's why we behave that way.
No, that last sentence, that's the sentence that's wrong.
Okay.
Okay? We see things differently, but we have to find what's called the middle path, the middle line. It's called Amsugula. All right? Amsugula means the people of the three. Segol is the three dots. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Right hand line, left hand line, middle line. Okay? Now, the right hand line and the left hand line, and here we're not talking politics. These are the right hand line is the side of giving, the left hand line is the side of receiving. But in the way, it's also reflected in politics as well, that you have two opposites. The extremes are not helpful. When people go to their extreme sides, they're all wrong. What you have to do is you have to recognize that there is another side beside yourself, okay? And to come to the middle line. Now, coming to the middle line is a process which is actually described step by step in the Zohar. And my vision, which I haven't quite got there yet, but I'm planning on it, Bezrat Hashem, is to translate the process as described in the Zohar into practical steps. All right, because this is what we need more than anything. Everybody's talking about unity, but nobody knows how to bring about unity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the Zohar itself gives us practical steps. Okay, first of all, to recognize that there is two lines, that there's a right-hand line and a left-hand line. And it can be between those people who went to Meron and the police, or it can be between the people who are looking for unity and the people who are marching on those demonstrations. Okay, it can be any two lines. All right, and we have to recognize that there are two. They're coming from two completely different worldviews. All right, but the extreme, using the extreme is not good because you can't get anywhere with that. All right. So what actually happens is usually the problem is where the wills to receive are. When the wills to receive are acting, okay, whether it's this side or that side, the first thing you have to do is you have to recognize where your will to receive is, and you have to stop using it. Okay, this is called the masach dechirik. It puts a barrier on the will to receive for oneself alone. Okay, and it can be on this side or that side, doesn't matter. You have to stop using the will to receive oneself alone. So it's very difficult to stop using one's will to receive oneself alone because a person feels power at the extremes. And he says, well, if I compromise, I'll lose my middle line. I'll lose my power. Okay, this is what both sides are saying. But the answer actually, they're wrong. And the reason is because ultimately they become ossified. At the extremes, they become a place where they can't go any further. All right. It's written in the Zohar, they become like castrated in a way. All right. Because there's no good can come from there. And when they begin to realize that, that's one aspect. The other thing is to understand what you gain by cooperation, but what you gain by giving. When a person realizes what they gain by giving, that they have something to gain by giving, then they're willing to listen. They're willing to compromise. They're willing to come towards. All right. But that to actually realize that it's a process. It's a whole process. It's all written out step by step by step in the Zohar. All right. But people don't know these processes. It's exactly what we talked about earlier. If we don't know the processes, but at least we keep the mitzvot, that will keep us safe. All right. So, for example, if we keep the mitzvot of no lashon hara, okay, and that includes no lashon hara against the government, and no lashon hara against the Haredim, and no lashon hara against the Chilonim either, and no lashon hara against any aspect of Israel's society, that would already have kept us safe. Just that. So the mitzvot keep us safe if we don't know the underlying spiritual principles. But if we don't want to keep the mitzvot just like that, then at least let's learn let's learn how they function. And then at least that way we'll be able to come to the middle line. Okay, so the mitzvot and themselves guard us, but we have to really keep them. It's not so easy. Okay, so yeah, I don't know how we got there, but it was very interesting. It's a very, very important discussion. Okay, because we really, really, really have to understand that we are all in this together, all of us. All right, and it includes all parts of Israel society, all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's a very, very, very important discussion and a very, very important question that you raised. Very important. And yeah, it's written in the Zohar precisely the steps, how we bring opposites together. And the first person who brought this understanding into the world was Avram Avinu. This whole process is described in Lech Lecha, step by step. This whole story of how he left Or Kasdim and he went and he fell into the hands of Nimrod, who put him in the fiery furnace, and then God saved him from that. And then he went to Haran, and then finally he leaves for Eretz Israel. This is told in a story form, the process that he went through, discovering how to bring about the middle line. And then that process was reenacted again with Yitzhak, because Abraham is himself the right-hand line, Yitzhak is the left-hand line. And so that's the reason for the Akedah. The Akedah was because Yitzhak has all the wills to receive. The Avraham is Chesed, Yitzhak is receiving, colossal wills to receive, Yitzhak had. Okay? So they had to, so the binding of Isaac is the binding of the will to receive. Okay, which was necessary to stop that will to receive going in the wrong direction. Okay, and Yitzhak agreed, was happy. He wanted to serve God. And so the Avraham and Yitzhak kind of merged together at the Akedah. All right, and then comes forth Yaakov, and Yaakov is the epitome of the middle line. He includes both aspects within himself. And we are Bnei Israel. We are the children of the middle line. And that's why Mahloket, which we are seeing unfortunately in the country, is very dangerous for us. Of all the things, it is the most dangerous thing. I want to say that I do not believe for 1 minute that a lot of this machloket is originating within us. There's a lot of evidence that a lot of the machloket is stirred up by foreign interests, which are not to do with us. And there's a lot of money being poured into this demonstrations and things, which is not coming from us at all. So it's all being stirred up on the outside, and people have to realize that being together, Am Yisrael, is more important. I think for a while we did remember that after the 7th of October. It seems to have slipped away. But we need to remember that, keep coming back to the achdut, to the unity. That's the most important thing, because we're Am Yisrael, and we're the children of the middle line. That's what we are. That's what Hashem. All the negative stuff comes just from the forgetting with the middle line. And so it's the negative consequences that we can see are only God's love to like saying, come back, come back, come back. Because he's telling us consequences right, which are natural consequences of disobeying the rules. Just as if, God forbid, a person was to walk off a cliff, there's a natural consequence to walking off a cliff. I mean, unless he's, wearing a snaffling rope or something. But there are natural consequences in the world, the physical consequences. So that, one doesn't want to, uh, the gravity exists, and so do spiritual rules exist.
So Yedida, does that mean that if the Jews were able to kind of come to, as you say, come to a middle line and come up with some sort of an agreement or a solution of some kind, even if it's agree to disagree, then all of the negativity that's happening us around us would subside?
I think it's very much so. Absolutely. Absolutely. I do think so. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing without any doubt whatsoever. Absolutely. And that's
Wow.
what, yeah, absolutely. I think it's the most important thing that and we can see that. I mean, the soldiers in the army, the Miluimnikim, have
Right.
every possible view under the sun. The Miluimnikim are all from all walks of society, from the left to the right. And when it
Right.
comes and when they're in Gaza, none of the nonsense which is happening outside makes any difference whatsoever. They're there together as brothers, and they say this as well. They say this is nonsense what's happening. He said when we're in Gaza, none of this
Mhm.
none of this nonsense which you guys are doing is real. It's rubbish.
Yeah.
It is rubbish. It really is rubbish. I do think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are being misled. There's a lot of money being poured into these demonstrations, which is not originating in Israel. And
Yeah.
and that's, it. But nevertheless, a person has to see for themselves and to choose to keep the mitzvot. And the mitzvot I'm not talking about if they're religious or not religious, but everybody can keep a mitzvah of not to listen to Lashon Hara. And the media is about Lashon Hara.
Completely.
It's about Lashon Hara. And so what we need to do is we need to stop listening. Just turn the rubbish off. And I guarantee that the people who are going on these demonstrations are people who are watching the media every night on their televisions. Because if you listen to Lashon Hara enough, then you believe it.
That's right.
Best thing is not to listen.
I don't.
Yep. So uh Bezrat Hashem, I don't know, step by step.
So we're allowing ourselves to be manipulated.
I think so. I think there's yes, I think there's a lot of manipulation going on. Remember, there's
Yeah.
a lot of interests in the world now where you have money, huge corporations, huge money. People have there's certain people with foundations which have more money than countries.
Mhm.
Okay, we know this. Like for example, what's happening in the World Health Organization. The World Health
Yeah.
Organization. Yeah, we've got um, there's countries are no longer the strongest elements in the world. Well, unfortunately, we now have individuals have huge sums of money, and this can be used in ways which are not appropriate, and we have to be careful. Just like we have to be careful when we walk off a cliff, you have to be or not to walk off a cliff. You have to be careful with what you listen to and what you
That's a very good, that's a very good comparison. We should use that.
That's right. I mean, there are spiritual rules, and the spiritual rules
Walk
are
off a
the
cliff.
mitzvot, okay? And everybody, even if you're not religious, can keep basic rules of loving your fellow as yourself, okay?
Yeah.
Not
Mhm.
talking slander, not listening to slander. These are
Mhm.
basic rules. If we just kept that, we'd be home and dry. Just that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, well, that's what Hashem, step by step. All right, somebody's put something in the chat. I didn't even look, sorry.
No,
Yes,
I
can't
put
you
it
said
100% agree with you. That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was a good learning, in fact. That was what we needed to learn today.
Very
Very-
much so.
Very practical
Thank you.
advice for us
Yes,
also.
yeah, but it's what a shame. It is practical. I'm telling you, the Zohar is incredibly practical.
Mm.
Wonderful.
Never thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you
Okay,
so
right.
much.
All right, you're welcome. So, like I'm inviting you, I'm doing a webinar. It's Monday at 8:30, and I'll be teaching the principle of affinity of form. And so anybody who wants to come is very welcome. I'll put that in the chat.
Thank
Okay?
Thank you.
You're very
Oh,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Lauren! Oh my! 1 second, let me get rid of